Let me know when you're ready and then we'll call the meeting to order.
Okay, I think I am ready.
Well, let me get my agenda out here. I've got everything all messed up. All right, the meeting will now come to order. Moving along, next is the consent agenda, and I'm going to go right to Larry.
Well, first, before we, so your
Okay.
approval is of the agenda. And if you want anything removed from the consent agenda, this is when we would do that.
Yes, I would like two things removed from the consent agenda, item C and item E.
Item
C,
B and E, Larry.
C is in Charlie, E is in Edward.
Okay. We can move item C to the permit program under applications. And E, we can move under action items.
Okay. So, the agenda, going back to the agenda.
Yep, so we would need a motion to move
I
the
move-
agenda with the changes.
I move we approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
For a roll call vote, I've got Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
and Marge.
Aye.
Okay,
So then with the amendments, we go to the permit program.
we go to
Now we
consent
go to the
agenda
consent
first.
agenda.
Yep,
Okay,
and so this would be for items A, B, and D.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda as changed.
Second,
any discussion? All in favor?
I've
Aye.
got Larry,
aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
Aye.
and Marge.
Yes. Okay, where do we go from here then? The permit program?
So visitor comments.
To the comments.
Yeah.
I know, I see we have a few visitors on the line. If anybody is here that's not here for a permit and would like to speak under visitor comments, you can unmute and identify yourself and give your comments.
Sam's here with the Lower Phelan Creek for the grant program.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah.
And I know we have a couple permit people here as well. Anybody wish to speak under public comment, visitor comments?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can move on to the permit program then, Marge.
Yes, indeed.
And I'll have Nicole go ahead and get started with 2102 Mead Metals edition.
Well,
Yeah, so
Maybe just want to
Oh.
hear from Larry first.
Nicole doesn't have to describe it's
Okay,
that I have a question about the permit itself. I'm okay with that.
okay.
Question is when we have something at that site, there's a lot of trees on the site and a lot of vegetation and things like that that's going to be taken down. And I understand that's not the responsibility of the watershed district to work on that. Our responsibility is to make sure the water is gotten rid of as a result of that. My question is, and I'd like to see it included in the future permit applications, is do we spend time going over the options that the people may have to replace that vegetation? Like we have programs to support rain gardens and things like that. I don't know whether you did it or not. I think it's a good idea to do it sort of as a public environmental service. But if you do it, I would like to see it in the permits so that we can document the fact that we've at least given them the opportunity to look at methods for replacing vegetation they're going to get rid of.
And just so I understand, obviously it would be vegetation cleared for areas not part of the development, because most of the tree clearing is for like an impervious building and parking. So you're talking about anything that's disturbed that could be restored.
Right, or just the fact it's an opportunity to contact these people and go over that with them some of the things that we have available from the watershed district. They may not be interested. I doubt if this place would be interested, but that's just me, but you never know. That
Are you
look as an opportunity to improve their property.
referring to like a cost share program? Is that what you're
Yeah, something like that.
suggesting? Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that has to, so our cost share program is set up, so it has to be above and beyond any requirements that they have, both from our permits and
Right.
any other permits they receive. So definitely they have opportunities, and we can make sure we're continuing to offer those opportunities to them.
Yeah, I think, it's, we're, we're not going to be going door to door to all the manufacturers in the watershed district and showing them, but we do have an opportunity to contact them, because I expect, Nicole, you have a long conversation. Maybe bring Paige into it and just say, here's some things to think about to participate more in the restoration of the environment in the area.
Yeah, I do that when I see a unique opportunity, but I can certainly be more meaningful in doing that more often. Yeah, even if it's like a native habitat grant and not for water quality.
Right.
But yeah, I that is a running kind of partnership that Paige and I have. We send each other projects and things, but I'll certainly keep it in mind.
Yeah, and just maybe make a little note in the thing that you talked to them about it, and then we have it documented that we at least tried.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw Pam's hand up, and I see Diane has her hand up as well.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if we have a hand up. Oh, we don't. Sometimes there's a reaction where you can put your hand up. I just listening to Larry makes me think too. I'm really sad too when we've got these mature woods of greater than 100-year-old trees, and there's so few of those left. And when they get destroyed for development, it's really sad, because you can't just go replace 100-year-old trees. It takes 100 years to replace them. And I just want to echo Larry, just kind of from the effort. If there's things we could think of to do to preserve these things, or if there's a way I know it's a stretch from water, but if we had like an alternative source to treat that water, or to do something that would allow that woods to stay, and we could help with that in any way, I think that would be great. Or if we could find a way to think of, like, if we had a plan for the watershed to try to maintain or increase the pervious surface that we have, then a patch of trees like that might fall into it, and we could somehow try to save it. Just throwing ideas out there.
Yep.
I do have Jacob and Brian on the line from Anderson Engineering, and I don't know if they could speak to any tree preservation, or if any conversations have been had, or if you can describe what the existing vegetation is like. I haven't been to the site myself. Any insight if you have any?
Yeah, this is Brian with Anderson. I mean, due to the nature of the expansion and the additional parking lots on either side, there's just very little room for saving trees, and unfortunately I guess the slope of the topography of the site kind of works against saving trees as well. So we looked into it. I'm not sure. It's a very tight site, I guess.
Yeah.
I
should also mention, yeah, this site in particular has pretty poor soil, but I can certainly keep that in mind. A lot of like better soil or infiltration sites is something that we like to target more with the cost share program. But yeah, I certainly hear what you're saying. And as you mentioned, we don't have authority over, removals. It's just we're regulating treatment of new and reconstructed hard surface. So I certainly get where you're coming from. I also have to be mindful of what our rules say and what we're trying to regulate for. The city of Shoreview and many other cities in our district have tree replacement requirements, and they get into the nitty-gritty of landscaping, and we intentionally don't, because we cover so many different jurisdictions. So but I definitely hear what you're saying.
And I'm not saying we're going to force it on them. just, it's a contact opportunity to let them know if we have resources that are available to them, or maybe get them thinking in a particular direction. It's just an opportunity we shouldn't pass up, I think.
Good. Thanks, Larry. Diane?
Yeah, I think all we're saying is we're proactive with churches, proactive with schools and some others. Just let's be proactive at the time we touch a project. Let's just wrap everything into it and see if there are some options to add on cost share program, or at least let them know about it.
Yeah, definitely. I can be more mindful of mentioning the cost share program. Like I try to hit more like public sites or sites with better soils, because we have to be mindful of how the grant fund is spending money as well. But I will certainly keep that in mind. Like I said, I do talk to Paige quite a bit about these sites that come up, but there's just not always opportunity.
Okay. And
Do we need a motion on this?
with that, I move that we approve permit number 2102.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Tina?
Larry?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
And Marge?
Yes. That brings us to E, I believe, the joint powers agreement.
No, we'll do the permit. We're down under 5B now for enforcement action report.
All right, where did we move
Good.
joint powers?
I moved that down to action item 7C.
7B, okay.
C, yeah.
All right.
So enforcement action report for permits is where we are. And thank you to our permittees that attended. Thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I answer? Oh yeah, thanks Brian, and thanks Jacob. I can answer any questions the board has on the enforcement action report if there are any.
It looked like there were no problems to me.
Yeah, it's pretty slow this time of year.
Anyone else? Okay. So that should bring us down to stewardship grant program. And on that, we will need a motion for 2801.
Yep, and we'll have Paige, I'll have Paige do an overview on this one for us, please.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys have seen a little bit about this, I think, in past presentations and board packets, but this is kind of a unique opportunity to work with the Lower Phelan Creek project to do a little bit further investigation for the daylighting of Phelan Creek in our portion of the watershed, which is exciting. Right, just south of Lake Phelan, Reach 7 and 8 is what they're calling that. And Sam Wagner is here. Sam, I don't know if you want to do a little bit more info, or if your board has questions for Sam.
I think it's a great idea, and it's seems to be kind of trendy now all over. The daylighting, I mean, it's a great idea. Is Sam going to say anything?
I certainly can. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sam Wagner. I'm the Environmental Stewardships Program Manager for Lower Phelan Creek Project. I could sort of give my own pitch. I would also love to hear people's, anything that people are particularly interested in. I would love to provide as much information as possible. I guess if I were to just give my short version of it, this has been a long-standing project, not just for our organization, but for a lot of residents across the east side. Even going back just to 2017, we surveyed over 400 community members who indicated overwhelming support for seeing this creek brought back. And keep in mind that this is in a community that still has Lake Phelan very accessible. So this would be a different water resource in an urban environment, particularly as you get further south from Lake Phelan. It's a heavily industrialized and urbanized area. So to even get the ball rolling, to have the creek opened up here would, I think, set just an incredible precedent. And I think it's something that the Watershed District would be really proud of.
Sam,
to have
can
that
you tell
resource.
us where this is gonna go?
Yeah,
I mean,
so
we've
I
got
believe,
Lake Phelan, just give us just a little, not, an oral map as to where it's gonna flow south.
sure. So there's actually a gate at the southwestern corner of Lake Phelan. So you could see it if you're on the walking path of the lake. And that is the actual path of the creek. If you cross the road, again, at the southwest corner, you cross Wheelock Parkway, you see a green grassy field that's next to a number of dead ends of residential housing. I've been told that at one point, maybe 20, 30 years ago, there were tennis courts on that space. There is absolutely nothing there now. It is not used for programming. And the creek is directly underneath that field. So
How
I
do you
guess one
cross
thing,
Maryland?
south of Maryland as well. Yes, so reach
Okay.
7 and 8 refer to the grassy space north and south
Right.
of Maryland.
On the west side of Johnson Parkway.
And then
Right.
that would flow into that Ames Lake or
No.
that place, whatever, it doesn't go there? Or
No,
what's
it
that
goes-
lake where we made a lake where it used to be a shopping mall?
Yeah. That's
Well, we're
Ames.
actually on the other side of that. That's why maybe Sam can keep telling us where this ends.
We need
Because it's-
visual. We need
Too
Pull
much.
visuals.
up the map.
I can share my
Or
screen
Sam,
if that
if
would
you
be
want to do
helpful.
that, that'd be great. Yep.
Please.
Sure.
Because Reach 7 and 8 are within our watershed
Cool.
district, and then it would flow into Capital Region. So the historic Phelan Creek flowed through the Capital Region.
Oh, there we go. Thank you,
Yep.
Sam.
Did this work for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So this is a brochure that was just finalized, but has not yet been printed into hard copies. And I love to be able to provide this with folks because this kind of describes a lot of the narrative and community engagement work that Lower Phelan Creek Project does. One thing that I did not mention, but I think is important, is that we are a Dakota-led organization. I myself am not Indigenous, but my coworkers and a good majority of our board are Indigenous. And Phelan Creek was a documented trade route and site of resources for the Dakota people to get from the Mississippi River all the way through that chain of lakes that gets up towards White Bear and even farther north. So what I have here on the left-hand side of my screen, Reach 7 is outlined right here in that light blue, and Reach 8 is the stretch coming directly south of the lake. And right here where we're ending, I want to say Maryland would bisect right about here. And I cannot remember the exact street, but we're talking about a cutoff. But that darker blue portion snaking this way is where the creek would flow along Phelan Boulevard before getting to the Eastside Heritage Park, Hollow Park, the Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary, where we do the majority of our work, and eventually the river, where it does not have a direct above ground connection. As I believe Paige and Tina were mentioning, the reason we are applying for funds from Ramsey-Washington specifically for this section is not only because Reach 7 and 8 are within your district, but because multiple feasibility studies have determined that this is the most viable stretch along the entire creek corridor for daylighting. So when we talk about, our big brain end of times goal, right, that would be to have this whole corridor reestablished, but it has to start somewhere. And frankly, this is a really great opportunity that we'd love to capitalize on. And that comes not just from community enthusiasm and support, but also multiple engineering groups that have supported us in this work. And Ramsey-Washington, in fact, has provided support from, I believe it's Bar Consulting, to do some flood management and risk estimate maps, which has been really helpful.
That's really cool. Can you point out where like Sweet Hollow is and that creek that was like the Brewery Creek?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Brewery Creek.
Well, it's not
this
Brewery Creek, but there's a brewery that had a creek and
Yeah, Hams.
Yeah, so Hams sits directly above Sweet Hollow, and the creek, there is actually visible water in Sweet Hollow. That is Phelan Creek. It has very little flow and could use some restoration and remediation. And that's actually, we've been in conversations with the city of St. Paul to try and bring funding that way. if you go down to the Bruce Bento Nature Sanctuary, where we do the majority of our work, you'll see 3 ponds, which were part of a project that removed toxified soil from that site and were meant to mimic the path of Phelan Creek. But again, we don't have that above ground flow that we would like to actually see from an urbanized water resource. So I'll quickly just point out, you would find Sweet Hollow Park right here in Reach 4. That's this dark blue sort of squiggle right there. And 7th Street running here sort of bisects Sweet Hollow Park to the north and Bruce Bento Nature Sanctuary to the south. And again, those are incredible examples of ecosystem remediation. So we have a lot of really good habitat, a lot of good biodiversity. We have prairie and oak savanna down in the Bruce Bento Nature Sanctuary. So one thing we don't often talk about when we talk about stream restoration is, well, what about the land? What about the floodplain? And that's a conversation that I've had with Paige in part, but this study is getting us that first step of the way. The next step is even more exciting, where we talk not just about digging the creek up, but about the restoration work that goes into making the land surrounding the creek itself useful for humans, resilient to flooding and precipitation, and even just aesthetically beautiful and sustainable. So it's, with all the work that's gone into this project, it still feels like we're at the beginning, but it feels really exciting. It feels like we're at a really good point of leverage.
Well, this is exciting. You've got to be really excited about that. I can just see the way it goes through the bottom of Phelan going out, and I know exactly, I've been by there so many times. It's unbelievable, that open lot and what you can do with that. And then you've got on the other side of Phelan Drive, you've got kind of another small swampland. And I would guess somehow you're going to tie that together.
That's
Oh,
a
I
good question. I can't speak confidently to that, if only because feasibility studies to this extent have focused just on that west of.
I'm just saying there's all sorts of possibilities there.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
are exciting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Cliff has his hand up, or had his hand up.
Well, I've worked on this issue for 30 years. The issue of daylighting the creek has come up ever since I've been with the district, starting back in the 80s. It's unbelievably difficult to do. What Marge referred to as the wetlands on the east side of Johnson Parkway was part of a University of Minnesota feasibility study to tie the creek into Ames Lake. Now that piece, the wetland pieces have happened, but the creek obviously is something that probably is going to go elsewhere on the west side of Johnson Parkway. I read through the whole report. I found it very interesting. I liked the graphics, the concepts of where the creek could be established. But the issue I didn't see addressed in that report is the issue that we've discussed over the years, is where is the water going to come from? Now, one question directly and then another one. The report made it look like there was going to be a new outlet pipe coming from the lake, or is it going to tap into the existing outlet structure that we have on the southwest side of the lake? Can you answer that, Sam?
I can't answer that with full confidence. Frankly, this is something that I've come to more from like a community engagement role, and that I've been working with engineering groups to determine what the best plan would be in that regard. So I don't want to give you the wrong answer.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
The issue is that, especially in the summertime, when it gets warm, Lake Phelan drops below the outlet level. And at that point, there is no water leaving the lake through our outlet pipes. So the creek would, in essence, be dry. And I think the report did recognize that it many times will be a dry creek bed. But I think a lot of the community feel like it's going to be an open flowing creek all the time. And that's just not going to be the case. Unless somebody pumps water into it, which is why Sweet Hollow has water, because there's a spring feeding the Sweet Hollow Creek, but that's not going to be the case up above. So I'm wondering if, with your community interaction, how that issue was addressed, if it has been.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention, Cliff, is that in conversations with our engineer, and again, these are because we're seeking to compensate them for a full comprehensive study, these have almost been pro bono conversations that I've been having leading up to this study, right? We're still at the stage where we're narrowing down their scope of work, where we're applying, we just put in a large application with the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and Paige was really helpful in jumping in on that. We're still in that position where we're pulling together different partners and figuring out exactly what things will look like. But one conversation I had with our engineer, he mentioned the Trout Brook Nature Sanctuary project, which is its whole own separate situation, but involved a lot of partners coming together in a relatively short time period. And I believe he was saying that that project pumps stormwater
Something's wrong here.
to maintain open flow.
Okay.
Yep, it's fed by stormwater, correct.
Yeah, they have
Oh,
a,
I'm sorry.
they have a
Is my
holding.
connection going to know?
Yeah, it was kind of going out a little bit, but it's better now. Yeah, they have a tank, like an underground tank where they store stormwater and then use that for their sanctuary area.
And so I don't want to, again, give an answer that's incorrect, but I just wanted to float that out there, that I think there's different options being considered. I think I'll refer back to the work that's been done on Ramsey-Washington's behalf by WAR Consulting, which has been specifically looking at flood risk in Reach 7 and Reach 8. And that was one thing that I wanted to make sure was worked into our scope of work, our most recent proposal, because I don't want us to put all this work in and then figure out that there's still things we're missing. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay.
I would love to give you a nice snappy answer on that, but I would rather say that that's something we absolutely want to resolve going forward.
Okay. I have another question regarding our stewardship grant program. This seems like it's something different that we haven't considered before. Is it really allowed within our current guidelines for the program? Paige?
I don't know. I think that's what we're asking for. I think, we've made some, I don't want to say exceptions, but we've had our funding for the aquatic vegetation grants, things like that. And I think after talking with Tina, we thought it would be best to come out of here because anything going forward would come out of the stewardship grant most likely. But I guess, again, that's up to the board too, if the funding should come elsewhere.
Yeah, I think the reason we wanted to put it through the stewardship grant instead of maybe our own, because we are not the lead on this. We're we're a partner, and we're it's something that is a request of ours. It's not that we're even 50-50, like it's a special request for grant, I would say grant funds to help with this project. Of course, we're partnering and helping with some of our engineering stuff around flooding and other engineering work, but yeah, I think it is a special request, though. I don't think it necessarily.
I don't have an issue with that. I just think the motion ought to be clear that we're granting a special request here.
Yep.
And to Cliff's point, then does this set precedent for funding studies rather than funding projects out of that fund? Because the request is for a study. The request isn't for doing anything.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. It's a planning grant. It's not a project grant. So I think it would potentially become more of a precedent for that in the future.
I think we need to in setting the precedent, we ought to make clear that this type of study is for a major community asset or something along that line, that it's something that is not just for a single site. It's a community public resource, restoration. We could tack on a couple other descriptors like that make this unique. If we run across it again, we make a unique case for that one.
And Cliff, I agree with you. This is a project, as you said, that has been going on for years and years. This is not just a request for a study that's a sole study that stands on its own. It's a part of an ongoing project.
Well, it's an ongoing issue that's been discussed for many years. And I think this study is probably going to be the culmination of a lot of analysis. And probably will put to bed whether or not this is really a feasible effort, and within our district as well as Capital Region.
Diane has her hand up.
Yeah, Paige, did you already put this in your budget status update? But it looks like it's mixed with public art.
Yeah, so I called it public art, and then I added project research. I'm kind of running out of room on my sheet, so I just added it in there as kind of, because we don't get a lot of public art projects. So just added it in there so that we have that. And then there's that italicized note on the bottom that it includes funds that are being requested today.
I'm okay with including it in the stewardship grant budget, but if we need more money at the end of the year, I think it should come out of something else, in the public art for that matter too. It seems to me it's more of a miscellaneous expense, but
Yeah, I will say that I usually, or if we get close to running out of funds, I will set those funds aside for, larger projects or residential projects. So definitely that's a consideration.
and I like Cliff's criteria. It's important that we always have those set when we do something new.
We'll need a motion.
So I will move that we approve the special stewardship grant for the Lower Phelan Creek study in the amount of $10,000. Is that right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Correct. Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion?
I assume,
Tina-
Tina, could
sorry.
you add in the
Yeah.
special provisions or the considerations into that motion?
Yep. I will
Okay,
do that.
thanks.
Okay, roll call.
Larry?
Aye.
Diane?
Aye.
Cliff?
Aye.
Pam?
Aye.
And March?
Aye. So that passes.
Thanks, Sam.
Bring the-
Thanks,
I'm
Sam.
sorry, Cliff.
I
Just
said
a
thanks
thank
to
you,
Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Sam. That was very good. Can you come back at some point in the future to tell us how this is going?
Absolutely. I just wanted to officially thank you all so much, truly from the bottom of our hearts. This is, I think, just such a great step forward for us. I think our organization has done so much of this stuff in informal meetings and scrounging up funds to have a feasibility study. And this feels just such a great opportunity to bring it all together, kind of like you said, Cliff. And I will try and get copies of our brochure printed and sent out to all of you, to the board and staff, because I think it really just brings together what we do as an organization, what we're looking forward to do with this project. And I would love to come back as much as you'd like to hear from me to keep you updated on the progress here.
Well, thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to hop off now unless you'd like to
All
hear
right.
from me again.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Tina, we moved the joint powers, I believe, down to 7C. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yep, down to 7C. That's correct.
And this is something that we approved last year, as I understand it.
So first of all, we have 7A and B. Did you want to do those first or
Well,
whatever? In whatever order you'd like to do them.
All right, since
We
that's
can-
C, let's do A.
Okay, so 7A is the North St. Paul Target Store BMP retrofit plans. So we have the plans, and what we're asking the board is that we can go out to bid for this project, and Paige and Brad are here as well to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thanks, Tina. Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen very briefly. Just if I can get to, tell me if you can see it here. Just wanted to highlight, in case you are unaware of where this particular target is located, it's obviously in North St. Paul, north of 36, south of 11th Avenue, and west of McKnight Road. And you can see by my cursor the large impervious surface that we're dealing with. This project is similar in nature to the one that's south of here, the East St. Paul one that we're just wrapping up the construction on. This area does drain into a system that gets to PCU Pond, which we formerly called Target Pond, creatively named back when it was constructed back in the early 90s. And then that then discharges into Coleman Creek and runs westerly, eventually getting to obviously Coleman Lake. So I'll stop sharing, but I wanted to show that just so you can kind of get a picture in your mind of how much impervious surface is there. There's a brief write-up memo that kind of described the project and the cost estimate that was prepared. We've got about 45% of that site that we could get to drain to some larger BMPs, tree trenches, and rain gardens. Again, similar to the BMPs that were built on the East St. Paul target. The plans are included in the board packet. They're at about 95+% complete. There's some tweaking yet we would need to do before they went out to bid. You've got a specification outline, and the estimate of probable construction costs and total project costs are included there too. The construction estimate we came up with is $1,082,000. You add in a 10% contingency on that, and the engineering brings up a total project cost for budgeting purposes of $1,390,000. So we're looking for approval of the preliminary plans and specifications for purposes of finalizing and going out to bid. Are there any questions or anything you would like to add, Paige?
Yeah, I was just going to add, that was a good summary, Brad, but just wanted to mention this was ran through our prioritization tool, and it is number 7 on the list, 7 out of 68, I think we have in there, and the projects ahead of it are larger flood projects, so projects that actually take habitable structures out of the floodplain, some larger projects like that. So this did rank pretty high, which is exciting to see. Yeah.
I would just like to throw out something, since we're talking about daylighting, that Target Pond on the northwest end, I believe we did daylight and then didn't daylight. And I just would like to throw that back out there as a place to daylight. Right, Brad? Good place to potentially daylight?
Yes, we tried to keep that creek alive when we built the project originally. Just with how we needed to manage the flood control aspect of the pond, we actually had to put in a lift station, and we were going to pump water into the creek to keep it flowing in the individuals' backyards that lived in the area. And we just had tons of problems with that pumping system. So we abandoned that and actually utilized the pumps, and those are now being used in the near the alum pond when we need to drain that down. So that system has been partially relocated. But I understand what you're saying, Pam. The elevations are such that it can't, if you open it up, it just doesn't free flow unless we were to excavate the creek down quite a bit. And those banks are very steep already, and the pipes are underneath that creek.
And that isn't public space. So the only people that see that creek would be the homeowners next to it, about a half a dozen houses.
And the ducks and well, all right, just if there was a way to do it without any pumps and and it was dry half the time, but when it rained, all of a sudden you had a creek. Woohoo! Just saying, those opportunities, if wherever they are, I think we should look into them.
I absolutely agree. Yes.
I had a question, Brad.
Yeah, Cliff.
I see that you basically use the tree trench concepts from Maplewood Mall and the tree guards and the curbs that are around those. Did you have a chance to talk with Target maintenance people about the plowing issue for them?
I don't know that conversation has been had or not.
It was Brad. I'll jump in
Oh,
there.
it
So
was.
we
Okay,
did,
thank you.
yes, yeah. So we did talk with Target Corporation early on before we did the East St. Paul store and talked with them. And we had a few issues during construction that we will address so that doesn't happen this next time around. Just some vehicles thought they could run over the curb and didn't go so well. So we'll address those. But yeah, so we were working closely with their maintenance crews. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that those incidents were during construction before the trees, right? Before the trees are planted, when there were
Correct.
Yeah.
holes and there wasn't sufficient, well, I don't know how much fencing you got to put around something,
Yeah.
but there wasn't sufficient fencing. But
And if you just want a side issue on that, the contractor's insurance company is taking some lead on that to finally defend any actions. So.
Okay.
Diane has her hand up.
Yeah, I appreciate you telling us that it was 7th on the prioritization list, but can we see that list sometime? And also, I would like to see it included in the write-up, the criteria that they scored on to bring them to that level.
Yeah, we can definitely include that. I mean, so one of the things I want to just mention is that prioritization, that tool that we use, that is a tool that we would have used with Target before we started, even talking to them about this project. That's a tool that helps us identify what locations we should seek out in those early phases. So, but I do think I agree 100% that we can include that in our write-ups as we move forward too, so you can see that as well. But we'll mostly be using that tool as we're identifying projects for the future, and so you'll see that information a few different times throughout a project life. In the early planning stages, the budgeting phases, and then into construction phases.
Since it's a new tool, that will just really help us
Yeah.
see how you're using it. So that would be great.
Sounds good.
I have a question. What you're asking for is to finalize the design. What happens as you're finalizing it, if it becomes much different than what this part of the proposal is, and it changes the estimate of price? And knock on to that question is, what if the bids come in? We've seen some pretty hefty increases in bids before of projects that we're doing for flood control. This is one we're doing for cleanup. Right now, the maximum is $16,600 per pound of phosphorus removed. What if it's $32,000? Can you come back with that? I mean, I'm sort of setting the board up to, where is the threshold, or do we not have a threshold? We're just going to do this no matter what it comes in.
No, so you
Well,
always
I'll answer
you-
to the first question, excuse me, Tina, about the 95% plans. Well, we try to get them to a place where we can feel fairly confident in the cost estimate. Now, if that were to come back for some reason in that last 5% or so, I actually think these plans are closer than that based on my review of them. But that's why we get them to that level, so you can have confidence in the estimate that we provide. So I don't expect that, but if they were way off, we would come back again. So sorry, Tina, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. I'm going to address the second part of it, in that you always get the opportunity, you see the bids come in. So at after the bid opening, that's always brought to the board for approval. And so you would see those costs. And if they were significantly more than you're willing to pay for a project, then you would, we'd have the opportunity to not do the project at that point.
Yeah,
Or rebid.
I understand that. I'm just trying to, because of what we've seen with some of these bids recently, I think the board needs to be thinking already, do we have a maximum, or because it's number 7 on the priority list and everything else is for something else, so we're just going to go ahead and do this. I don't know the answer because we don't have the information yet, but I'm just saying we need to start thinking about that, because again, we've talked about this before. $16,000 maybe for a retrofit isn't so bad, but is $32,000 per pound worth it?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents worth, we've always talked about, there is an upper limit. And
Right.
once we hit that, and right now, I think that upper limit, as far as I can remember, is somewhere around $20,000 a pound. I mean, that's about as high as we've ever gone for even a small project, but I think we definitely need to keep that in mind. Because there are options. We just might have to pursue a different approach.
Right. Right. And
Yeah, or just reduce the amount of treatment that we're providing.
Right.
Right. And I just had 2 niggling questions. One is, what's the stockpile for?
Hmm.
There's a thing on the,
Stockpile site.
there's a stockpile site. What are we stockpiling?
Oh,
Yeah, I would have to go back and look at the
Okay.
plans, but yeah. It'd be a temporary stockpile of material probably that was excavated. But yeah.
I just wondered what it was because it was on the
Okay.
map. The other thing is that there's a grouping of rain gardens down there in the southeast area.
Mhm.
Is Target planning on doing anything to make that a public amenity, like putting in picnic tables, or do you talk to them about that? It seems like
Yeah,
a nice place to be.
I would say they're not going to do that. They have some like employee picnic tables in that area, but I don't know that they're interested in having a customer or guests, as they call them, guest picnic tables or things like that.
Okay.
I know
But
at the
definitely
one,
they're interested in, oh, sorry, Dave, I was just gonna say they're interested in signage and getting some educational pieces out there. So that'll be our next step with both of the Target stores.
they have a picnic table out next to a rain garden by the other Target that we use. So they have
Okay.
staff take breaks there and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's great. Okay. I was just wondering because it looks like a neat area down there.
Yep.
I will pass or recommend a motion. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'll
great.
move,
Go
I'll
ahead.
move that we approve the preliminary design, estimated costs, and proposed project schedule, and direct staff to finalize the design and bidding documents and solicit bid proposals.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Okay, Tina,
Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Hi.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and March.
aye. So that brings us to, I believe, B, since we're not going to do the joint powers, that is C. So Tina, this is your part. I believe that you're in charge of this.
Yeah, so there's a number of different items for review tonight for the annual meeting that is laid out in the packet. This is the official business that we take every year. The first I have on here is the election of officers, and I have the current officer listing there in the packet. And so what I would need from you is a motion to elect your president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary for 2021. And Diane has her hand up.
Yeah, I've been on the board several years now, and everybody brings skills and contributes. I just like to know why we can't rotate officers like other boards do. So to get the discussion rolling, I want to nominate Larry for president.
Do we need a second on this, Tina?
Yeah, typically we would do the whole slate at once, but we can do one at a time. Mhm.
Is that acceptable to Larry?
Yeah, I'm fine. with that.
Well, I'll nominate myself for president, but I need a second.
I'll second the nomination for Marge.
I'd be happy to serve as vice president again. If that,
I'm happy
Jesus,
to
sir.
nominate Cliff as vice president again.
And I'll second Cliff as vice president.
Tracy,
And-
would it be best to do them one at a time, you think, or is it?
Yeah, I
Well, we
would
have
think
to.
if, I think we need to determine if the first motion failed for lack of second.
Yeah.
And then we could
Oh.
move on, I think, for each one. So on the, I think there was, the first motion was by Diane to nominate Larry as president. I don't know that there was a second to that.
I can second it if that's what it takes to get a discussion.
So then Larry seconds, and then
Okay.
the discussion on that motion.
I think we need to settle the president prior to voting on the other officers.
Right, and this is the motion for president, I believe, right, Cliff?
So we would
But there's
start,
two nominations.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
two nominations for president.
I would be the second one, just to be
Right,
clear.
right.
So do we vote then?
I think Tracy's saying we need to vote first on the nomination for Larry, and then we would vote on the nomination for Marge. Is that correct?
That's the way I see it, if they made a motion, and then it's been seconded with discussion.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Cliff.
So that they're on a board approved nomination or candidate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have discussion first?
Yep.
Yep, there's a motion and a second for Larry to be president, and so this would be the discussion time.
Okay. I would just say that I also have been associated with the board for a long time, although not on it. And my experience with other boards and doing things like this is there is a rotation, and I think it's valuable to do. It's not that Marge is doing a bad job or Cliff is doing a bad job, but it's more having a different point of view on things. I mean, I'm okay with somebody other than me being president. If I thank Diane for considering me, but I think we ought to mix things up a little bit just to give people a different opportunity to look at things from a different point of view. This is very common. In fact, this is one of the few places that self-governs, if you will, that I've seen that doesn't have some kind of rotation in it. I think it happens in most of the other watershed districts, if not all of them. So I think it would be valuable. I'm not looking to be president, but if that's what happens, that's what happens. And I think it would give a new perspective on things.
And I, just to comment, so Larry, I just like the way Marge is running things. I'm going to vote for Marge, nothing against you. But I'm hopeful that, bringing new perspective to the table. I'm hopeful that you don't need to be chair to bring perspectives to the table, and that we all feel that we can bring our perspectives and ideas to the table for any
Absolutely.
issue we're discussing at any time. So I'm hoping you don't need that. But
No, and I don't need it. That's in fact not even the point. Because when you look at how they set up watershed boards, every manager is equivalent to every other manager, no matter what job they have. That's the way it's set up, and I understand that. I've read through all the rules and regulations, and that's the way I come out. It's different than other organizations, but I don't know that we want to get trapped in the way of doing things that we, next year we're going to have the vote and we're all going to be in the same position. Next year we're going to have the vote and we're all going to be in the same position. It's people would, I think some of the citizens would like to come to a meeting and see somebody. It'd be okay with me if it was Cliff or Pam or Diane. I think we just ought to mix things up a little bit. And, frankly, I'm ready to give up the treasurer's job again. It didn't seem I was doing anything, but somebody new in a treasurer's job would have a different way of approaching it. So I think that's valuable just in itself.
Is there any more discussion? I don't know if it's my role to lead it if Marge is a nominee, but go ahead, Cliff.
I just said, I think, so we vote on the approval of the candidate for the position. So we'll vote on both Marge and Larry, and assuming they both are approved as a candidate, then we have to vote on which one gets the office, correct?
That sounds, unless there's another nomination.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, for another nomination. I would nominate Cliff to be president of the board.
I'll second that for discussion.
And again, nothing against Marge. Don't
Yeah.
think this is against you, Marge. This is just a procedural issue.
And just to throw in some discussion, I was administrator when Roger Lake was president for almost 20 years. Everybody revoted him as president because he ran such a darn good meeting, and he was always very well prepared. And so there's never an objection. Nobody felt, and I don't think we are any different, that everybody has a voice. I think if we had a president that limited discussion, dominated a meeting, whatever, I'd be the first one to suggest we vote him out. I don't think that's the case. I think as long as we have opportunity for open discussion and the president allows everybody to say their piece, I think we're in a good position to have solid decisions with the information that we need. And so I don't think in that case, if it operates like that, I don't think the president really serves as the chairman, just facilitates the meeting and how we just, what items are open for discussion.
Yep. And I agree. Again, I've read the position of the president, and there's not much to do except for run the meeting and work on the agenda with Tina.
Right.
And I agree with what you've all said, but I also think that everyone's capable and that it is good to give people to have a chance in different roles.
Sure.
And I'm perfectly okay staying with no role forever. I don't need one. And if I have one, secretary is the choice for me, but I'm totally happy not. So don't need to rotate anywhere for me.
So we
I'll
have,
call the question regarding Larry's nomination.
And so
What does that mean exactly? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, Tracy, can you?
the way I see it now is we have a slate of nominees. There's three. There is Larry, Marge, and Cliff. And I would expect we will need to take a vote as to which person of those three would be president. So I think we would take a public vote.
And just so each person, then each board member would indicate who they are voting for president. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's 34 years I've been doing this. This is my first time too.
Yeah.
So
Okay, Tina, do you do a roll call then?
Yep. So I'll do a roll call and then you would indicate who your vote for president would be for.
Okay.
There we go. That's a good one.
Does that work for everybody? Does that work,
Yep.
Tracy?
Yep. Yep.
So I will start with Larry.
You can vote for yourself.
Yeah,
You
I
can-
know I can vote for myself, but I nominated you too, so now I'm conflicted as to what I want to do. Well, I'm going to be really weird about it and vote for Cliff.
All right, Diane,
Larry,
Cliff,
Larry.
Pam,
Marge.
and Marge.
Marge.
Okay.
So we have a 2-2 tie.
Down to
So
two.
do we revote between the two candidates? Is that?
Yep. I guess.
Wait,
we'll have
wait,
to-
I thought Cliff voted for Larry and Larry voted for Cliff.
Right.
So
You
then
did, but
Marge
Diane
would,
also voted for
And
Larry.
Diane, you
So I have
voted for
two votes.
Larry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
should have voted,
Okay,
I
I'm
should have
just
voted
trying
for
to
myself and then we'd be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, take it again.
Okay, so now we are between Larry and Marge. And I will
That's
start again with, I'm doing the same order, just so you know, Larry,
Vote for Larry.
Diane,
Larry,
Cliff,
Larry.
Pam,
Marge.
and Marge.
Marge.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's Larry, 3-2.
Weird.
Congratulations, Larry.
Congratulations, Larry.
All the,
I had no idea when I came in here I get a new job.
with all the accolades and money that comes with it.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Okay, good. So then we can move to vice president.
Vice President.
I nominate Cliff.
I'll second.
I'll second. There, you second.
Any discussions on that nomination? Is there anyone that wants to nominate someone else?
No, just Cliff, you're still willing to do it. That's kind of the big job.
Yeah, it's fine.
Great.
Great. So it sounds like the slate of nominees for vice president is Cliff.
Yeah, so we can,
Do
any
a
more
vote?
discussion? I'll call a roll call. Larry?
For Cliff.
Yes, this is for Cliff. For Cliff as
Yeah.
vice president.
Yeah.
Diane,
Aye. Cliff.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and March.
Cliff.
And then next would be for treasurer.
And that was Pam, right?
No,
Larry.
no,
that
it was Larry. I nominate Marge for treasurer.
A second.
I'll second.
Oh,
it's
what
very
do I
good.
want? Treasure. Okay.
any other discussion? Or any other nominations?
Unless Diane wanted to be treasurer, I didn't ask.
No, thanks.
What is, so that leaves what, secretary? Maybe Diane wants to do that.
Let's
He
take a
already
roll.
is.
We can take a roll call on treasurer. if
Yeah, we'll
there's-
take a roll call on treasurer. Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and March.
Aye.
Okay. Yes, and then next would be secretary.
I nominate Diane.
I
I
don't,
second.
Okay.
What
I
was that, Diane?
I respectfully decline.
You don't want to be secretary?
No.
Oh, okay, fine, I'll do it.
I'll
I
nominate
Pam.
Pam. Okay, second.
I'll second Pam.
Thank you for giving me the only role I would want other than nothing.
Any discussion? Okay, Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and March.
Aye.
All right, so we have our 2021 slate that will start next month.
Kevin.
And I'll make a motion to reaffirm the existing slate of consulting staff, fire engineering as engineer, Gallowitz Olson for attorney, and Redpath and Company for accountants.
second.
Another second, if you will.
Any discussion? I can call roll call on that too then for Larry,
Aye.
Diane,
Aye.
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and March.
Aye.
Okay. The last thing on here is the official designations for bank of deposit, which is not, doesn't really have a lot of discussion to have.
Yeah.
But the official newspapers, Tracy has done some research on that, and I'll share my screen. Tracy, I'll
good.
share it so they can
Oh,
see
good.
that,
I had it up, but I'd rather you share it.
if I can find it on my screen.
Yeah, I have mine, but
Bear Shore View and Stillwater.
yeah, so, what happened this year is Lilly newspapers went out of business. So that's why there's, going to be kind of a really a big kind of gap in our coverage area. So, once again, we pulled out the statute and we really have, we really need to cover our jurisdictions. And most of the laws relating to the newspapers relate to really single jurisdictions, right? A city. So if you have Stillwater and you have a Stillwater Gazette, that should take priority over others if it has its main office in your locality. We are broad, and so we can then go down to a secondary office in our locality. It also has some requirements of circulation and number of households it reaches and the population. And then there's a lot of exceptions based on if you're just in an area that doesn't have that kind of a paper. So I've got this graph here just to compare, and we can't determine how to compare a line to an inch column. We think the Pioneer Press and the Star Tribune will be probably significantly more expensive than the others. But I really do have an opinion that we should try the Pioneer Press again in light of the publications we have lost and in light of the circulation requirements in general. And I actually like the timing of when we can publish notice, because sometimes with our meetings being once a month, we get pushed up against some deadlines in publishing something twice a week or consecutively.
And weekly, yeah.
Yeah, or weekly. And Shoreview is every other week, so that becomes just a little
Wow.
difficult. Yeah, so then really we need almost a month for notice, and we don't typically have that after we approve a budget or need to do a public hearing. So we, as the attorneys that have to notify these publications, Pioneer Press would probably be our, should I make a record, would not be one of our top because they're always difficult to deal with. We hope they've turned the page. They were very responsive when we went to put this matrix together. And I do like the same day submission ability. So we in the past have really not been pleased with them, but we're hoping that they will be doing better now. It's been quite some time. And I think based on the statutes and the publication times, probably the Pioneer Press fits our needs and meets the statute the best.
Tracy, can I ask a question? What happens if we go to Pioneer Press to publish our notices and it doesn't get in? Then it would need to push our meetings. I mean, so let's say we're having difficulties getting them to get it published.
Well, where our difficulties came in the past wasn't necessarily the publication. It was getting the affidavit afterward.
Oh, gotcha.
That it was published. And what it does give us is it's daily. So again, if we don't get something in on one day, we have an opportunity to get in on the next day. Where a weekly, we miss that weekly and we could be missing some timelines.
Yeah.
So I asked more again, like, remind me, and it really was that, we couldn't call and necessarily get an answer, and we couldn't necessarily get the affidavits back. That we're not usually in this business needing that. It's not like it's trying to get it to court or something, but those were our two frustrations. I think we're willing to give it another try, just really as a result of having lost Lily newspaper that did cover our jurisdiction, and they were great to work with.
How many official public notices do we do on the average? Just a handful a year, right?
Well, every project, we do projects, budgets, CIP, budget. Yeah, probably a handful, Yeah.
So the difference in cost won't be significant in terms of our entire budget. I think Pioneer Press would be a better source for our general public as well.
Right.
So I go along with that.
Pam had her
I'm fine
hand
with
up.
that too, but I'm just more thinking this is just such a dumb rule. Like hardly anybody gets the newspaper anymore, except for old people like my husband and older people. And honestly, like who's reading this? Nobody. It's time for that law to be changed. And who else? Larry or Brad? You two too, but
I do.
and Cliff. Okay, yeah. So okay, you five, and then like everybody younger, they get their news on the internet. Nobody, they're not getting a newspaper. They're not going to read it. So I'm just wondering if, as a side note here, that maybe like the next time we think of a mod resolution, we come up with a plan to ask our lawmakers to change this rule to make it, make more sense for the times.
Oh, I hear you, just even in a total legal sense, because we publish for probate still, and there is some fallback if you didn't have any newspaper in your area that fit this criteria. There is some posting on your website and so forth. They have some fallback, but it's not the first position. I think they want to keep these in circulation and us paying the fees.
Yeah.
But having said all that, I'm all for Pioneer Press for this year.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
Yeah, the motion would also be to approve the official bank of deposits and then Pioneer Press as our official newspaper.
Pam, is that okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
And I'll second that again. So we need a roll call, Tina?
Yeah, as long as there's no more discussion. So Larry.
Aye.
Diane.
Aye.
Cliff.
Aye.
Pam.
Aye.
And Marge.
Aye.
All right.
And
Now we can do.
Just a comment. Thank you, Tracy. You answered every question I would have had. So I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Tracy. Appreciate
Do
that.
we have any other business with the Board of Managers annual meeting?
Nope, that's it for the annual meeting.
Well, I do have a comment, and that is that the appointments for the board are not made before we have our annual meeting. We don't even know. Pam and I have for reappointment. And I'm just thinking that
Oh,
it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, or there's some cliche. I'm not exactly sure what it is.
mhm.
Yeah,
But it would seem that if we're going to have elect our slate of officers and then the appointments are made after we elect them, that maybe if that's going to be the case, we should move the Board of Managers meeting.
I brought
yeah,
it up last year and everyone knocked it down. It's the most obvious thing there is to do, it seems to me.
So have the elections on March board meeting, not the February.
Yeah,
board.
Larry and I were up last year, so I said, shouldn't we wait? You know, and it's true every year, somebody is.
Right.
Cliff was last year.
Okay,
Um,
Well,
the
Diane, I
year
agree.
before, but
I don't care either way. I mean, I see us also, we can just change if somebody was replaced, but I could go either way. I'm happy to.
Well,
to
I'm
put
just saying
our
it makes
board
more
on.
sense, even if you've got, let's say we don't get appointed, you've got two more people. Well, again, it just kind of makes sense to me that after the new appointments are made for the year, that you have the Board of Managers annual meeting.
Especially since I forgot to apply.
oh no.
Tina reminded me a couple days ago. But my application was accepted, so we'll see what happens.
But we don't have to do that today. I'm just saying, this is something to think about.
Yeah, we should. I agree.
yeah, I think that's a good point. I think like Pam was saying, if we needed to, we can readdress it in March if somebody was not reappointed, but yeah, if you'd prefer, we can move it to March as well.
But what I think we might want to do is make that an agenda item so that then it could be public notice and we could get voted upon, and then we could just look at if there's any other requirements why we make that annual meeting in January or February. It always makes logical sense, but we'd probably want it on the agenda to vote on it, and then if it's going to be changed, then we'll change it.
Well, I think historically it was January or February, but our date of creation was in February.
I see. Okay.
Oh yeah, and actually, technically, our bylaws say that the annual meeting's in January, but I think we've typically held it in February. So because I just looked that up not that long ago too, and it technically says January, but
it was always hard to get it in January because it's the first week of the year and everybody's coming back from the holidays, and typically that board packet is tough to get out on time and that stuff.
It shouldn't be that hard to change it then to March.
would need a bylaw change. That's the piece that could go on the agenda then.
Yeah, if that makes, if that's what you would like me to do, I can bring that forward at another meeting.
Good.
It's not of urgent importance. It just makes common sense to me.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay, now I think we're fine. Do we have to make a motion or do anything to approve everything we've just done, Tina?
Nope, I think you're all good with that item. So the next item then is that 3E.
Finally, joint powers. I've been waiting for this almost for the whole agenda.
Yeah. Well, like Larry, he's the one that pulled it, so I'll see if he has any questions here that I can address.
Yeah, I'd like to know because as somebody noted, we approved at the last year's meeting at this to agree to participate in the joint powers agreement that hadn't been formed, but we said we still want to use iMetroNet. Now they have the joint powers agreement. I read through it, and Tina, I expect you're involved with this. Am I correct?
Right, so I was not on so they had a smaller committee that developed the JPA, but it went to all of the administrators as well, and to our attorney.
And some of the issues that come up when I read the setup for it, it says, okay, we aren't paying our people enough, and They might not have a place to stay and all kinds of issues. We're going to keep things the same this year. What's the projection for what it'll look like next year? And will it still be a good deal for us?
Yeah, I think that's what's going to be developed over the next 6 months before we budget again for 2022. So we've already committed what we'll budget for 2021.
Right.
And that will be sufficient. So I can't say yet until we haven't developed those future budget scenarios.
Right.
But that will be coming.
I'm sort of getting ready for that because I think one of the things that we need to look at is let's say the price doubles. Is it still a good deal for us? Or should we be looking at providing these facilities another way? Do you know like how many votes we get compared to other people? Because it depends on how much you pay in. I figured that.
Oh, yeah, we're 2% of the budget of the total
2%.
of
Okay.
youth, 2% of youth. So we get 2 votes
Wow.
out of 120 votes. So.
Okay. Wow. That's interesting.
That's not much. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
it's not much, so that it may not be a deal. I'm just kind of looking ahead, reading this thing.
Yep.
Who are the delegates? We're supposed to have a delegate and a backup. Are you the delegate?
Yeah.
Yep. So I would be the delegate or the person that would be on the board for the JPA.
Okay.
And I haven't designated my backup yet, but it probably will be Carrie from my office, from the
Okay.
office.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do you have any other color on this thing before? I read it. It's very, very comprehensive. I understand the penalties when you pull out and all that kind of stuff. But I was just kind of wondering where it was going.
Yeah, I think, once all the JPAs come in, and that should be shortly, should be soon, we'll start having our board meetings, and that will be our first order of business, is to see what it's going to take to transition this into its own entity. And then I would anticipate that we'll see what kind of increases that includes, and I can definitely do some more research on comparing that to other entities that do similar work, so that when we're making budget decisions for 2022, we can take that into consideration. Diane and Cliff had his hand up first, and then Diane.
I would like to add that we went with this group when it was much smaller. I think when we joined, there was in the teens of number of organizations. Now it's basically doubled. And the reason it's doubled is that the other organizations realize that they get a much better quality service for a reasonable cost than they did on their own. And I had a number of cities and other watersheds tell me that their situation was really, really blanked up before they switched to Metro INET. They had significant issues before they joined the Metro INET system, and we realized that too after we moved into our new building. Every time there was a need for upgrades, they were right there. They did it either in person or out remotely. When we needed system or equipment upgrades, they did all the research and purchasing for us and brought it over and installed it. And basically it was a what do you call it? A key system where they, it's just basically, we just told them what we needed and it was done. To get that from an outside private service would be expensive, and I think more expensive. And just the other point about the budget, the current budget for INET has always included some, or the staff salaries and some element for office space in the Roseville City Hall. So I don't think whatever happens is going to be significantly different. It'll probably be higher, but I don't think it would make it exorbitantly more expensive. Definitely not double. It would, probably be in a 10-20% more is my guess, but we'll see. But from my time there, and I think in Tina's time, she's been with them too, it's been a very high quality service.
Great. I appreciate that. I just didn't know what was going on before I voted for something. I didn't know what the experience and what is going on with it.
Diane?
Yeah, I just wanted to pretty much say the same things. I'm surprised Roseville kept it as long as they did, but that was nice, actually. And when we discussed this before, we recognize it's going to have to go up. They're changing their supervision management role. They'll probably need more space. And, I think that's just to be expected, and it's going to be good. There's enough groups in it. The cost should be not too bad. And just from a user point of view, before I could get used to this new system, and we all know how I am with technology, they were so quick in responding if I screwed up my password or something, that I really appreciated that. So it's, the high level and the low level stuff, it sounds like we're pretty happy with it, unless they have a wholesale change in their operation. It's nice to be grouped with other like agencies for this kind of service.
Yeah, it really is, from a staff perspective, they're so responsive. They're, even as we've all been working from home and having, if we have issues, it's just really easy to get in touch, and they're really responsive to that. So more to come for sure, but this will be the first step.
Okay,
So I think we need a motion at this point.
we do.
That's correct.
And
I will move approval of the joint powers agreement for the Metro INET program.
second,
Second. Was there a second anywhere?
Yeah.
second,
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, Tina, go ahead.
Larry,
aye,
Diane,
I,
Cliff,
Aye.
Pam,
I,
and Marge.
Aye. Administrators report, Tina?
So I have some information there on meetings attended and upcoming meetings, if anyone has any questions about those.
yeah.
No?
Yeah, Larry does.
What do we anticipate for Waterfest 2021? Do we have agency planning in case we can't get together, although it is outside?
Yeah, we are in the pavilion too, though, and
Yeah.
so, and right now, I mean, the way the outdoor gathering requirements are right now, we wouldn't be able to. So what we've done at this point is Maddie, our consultant who works with us on Waterfest, has sent a survey to all of our vendors and partners asking, if we were to hold an event, would you still, attend? If we didn't, do you have any online materials already put together that we could kind of do an online sort of event where we would have opportunities for our residents and our participants to visit, the different vendors and their information. So we just did a survey. We're just getting that back now. So we're actually meeting on Friday to discuss kind of what our next steps are. Maddie's also been researching kind of what our latest dates of decision making are for this. Again, it's what we did last year too. Kind of kept seeing when, what our permits do, when would permits be, when would we be able to get our money back for different things. So she's putting all that together. I'm not anticipating we'll be able to hold an in-person event, but that's kind of the direction we're going, but we want to see what's available. For a lot of our vendors and participants have done some online, work over this last year, provided materials online. So we want to see what's out there and what we could possibly do. We also talked about potentially doing some sort of dispersed event. So maybe we have just a canoe event. If the Voyager canoes were still holding events and they were doing it with their COVID procedures, could we have just that one day? Maybe we do like once a month over the summer months. We hold a smaller sort of engagement event, but there's still so much up in the air, I think, over what we'll be allowed to do. So
That's good insight. Thank you.
Yep.
You also met with Bowser on funding. What's the status with that?
Yeah, so this is the second, well, we've completed the second phase of the watershed-based implementation funding. So our first phase, we put money towards Wakefield Park and the BMPs that we put in place there. This second round that was just approved or is going through the grant process right now is being used for the North St. Paul Target site. The third, so now they're asking, how did that second phase of funding go? Because we had these convening meetings where we met with all of the watersheds within the East Mississippi area. So now they want feedback from us on what the third phase of this program should look like. And so it was a sharing meeting of how it worked. So there's a bunch of different groups that met. So we are in the East Mississippi area. There's a West Mississippi, there's a Lower Minnesota. There's like 2 Lower Minnesota area groups that all met and had their own procedures and ways of figuring out how this money would be divvied out. So in our area, most of the money went to watershed districts, and it was split out evenly amongst the 5 watersheds that were part of that group. In another area, they actually sat down all together as a group and prioritized projects in their area. So this is what they call the Huck 8 area. So it was a number of watersheds and counties and cities that went through quite an elaborate process, I would say, to determine what projects would receive the funding. Our group was much more under the idea that we should fund our plans. We already have prioritized projects in our plans, and we should be giving the money to our watersheds who already have all that structure in place. So there's still some debate about what happens next in the next phases, but oh, Cliff, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
We don't get all that much money from it, correct?
This round, I think it was like $94,000. Yeah, so it's a little frustrating. It feels like Bowser's kind of passing the buck. This is Clean Water Fund money. The legislature tells them that it needs to go to implementation. It's different in the metro because we don't have one watershed, one plans. And so for the one watershed, one plan areas in the outstate, or even like the Lower St. Croix has a one watershed, one plan, there's a process in play already. And so they give the money to them, and then this group figures out how they're going to do it. For the metro though, when we already have our comprehensive watershed management plans, it feels a little bit like we're overcomplicating this, fairly small amount of money. But it took a lot of my time and other administrators' times to kind of come up with this process and evaluate the process and go through the process with Bowser. And so it's most of the metro area's administrators' opinion that it would be better if Bowser had a more streamlined approach for how they give that money out. So there's some weird rubs going on. I don't understand why they feel like they can't just fund our plans that are already approved. They approve them, they're Bowser approved plans. So I don't know, we'll see where that goes next, but they've taken our feedback, and we're hopeful that they'll listen to that feedback for the next round.
Is that something Maud could help with, or?
Yeah, Emily's been helping facilitate that a little bit, just as far as the communications and kind of pulling the Metro Mod administrators together in that discussion. It's kind of, again, it's just a complicated political system between the Mod board, and a state agency, but
I think it's hard for Maud to take a advocate position for the metro area, because we're such a small part of the whole state. And there is outstate versus metro conflict. So it's a difficult one.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think so. When I talk a little bit about MAWA in my administrator report too, we can kind of just jump to that. So there's the administrators, and then there's the mod board, and I think what MAWA is ultimately asking is that we have a seat at the table with the mod board to help advise and answer questions, and kind of just from a staff perspective, kind of what the needs are across the state. So this is all, all regions. Because there's a little bit of feeling that the mod board is kind of just doing their thing, their own thing, and they're not taking into account like what's actually happening in these, watersheds, and what maybe where our real concerns or priorities should be. And so I think there's a lot of different communication streams that could be improved. And one of them is between, I think, the administrators and the mod board, as far as just having a seat at their table so that we can help, not on the board, but just as an advisor.
And surprisingly, that hasn't changed a lot over the last 30 years.
Right.
It's been an issue all along.
Yes. And I think all along it's been, well, maybe when there's turnover on the board, but A, there's not a lot of turnover on the board, and B, when there is, it's just kind of the same thing. So there has been movement. So our MAWA president, who's Margaret Johnson, she from MAWA, she did go to the mod board meeting this month, and we're going to have a joint just discussion session with the mod board, with the MAWA executive committee. So we're going to just kind of talk through some of those things, see how we can better assist the board and provide some guidance on, what the priorities are for us as staff and as watersheds. So,
frankly, between us, my opinion has always been that the mod board are managers, and we can all probably agree that the managers aren't experts. We hire bar and we hire staff to be our experts and advise us on how to take an approach to a specific problem. On the mod board, it's generally appeared to me that all the managers that are on the mod board perceive themselves as the experts. And very seldom did they perceive, or did they take the advice of staff that is coming to them and presenting them information. And ever since I left, people have been asking me to join the mod board. And frankly, I won't. I don't need to put myself through that aggravation, and it would be aggravation. So, it's clear what my position is, but that's kind of the way it's been for a long time. The ones that get on the mod board are pretty strong personalities, and they kind of stick to it, and it's hard to alter their frame of mind or their approach.
I would also say that many of them are governed by self-interest. The people, the lake associations, the landowners, the
farmers.
Yeah, there's a lot of being on the board to protect yourself and others like you.
Right, it's complicated. How that
it just is.
But I think a big improvement was hiring their own administrator, which we've promoted that for a long time. And I think it's been pretty good since that's happened.
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of improvement, and MAWA has taken a stronger approach. I think that as a community of administrators, I've seen some real good improvements as far as our connection with MOD because of Emily too. And like I mentioned, setting up these committees so that MAWA members are part of the MOD committees is helpful. I think, the Spouser funding, not issue, but process, I think was one of the places where MAWA kind of saw it as, well, if we had a stronger MOD board, its potential, because it does also impact Watershed 1 plans and how that all works. And if we had a strong feeling about something as administrators that we would propose to MOD, that could be a really strong alliance for MOD board to be, presenting on all of ours behalf. And I think, there's also MOD representation on the Bowser board. There's managers that are on the Bowser board. There's managers that are on the Clean Water Council. There's different places where if there was a better stream of communication, I think we could have more influence statewide. So.
A good example is the support for the Minnesota Stormwater Research Council. That came up to the MOD board, probably 5 years ago. And the first time I was there and presented on the topic, it was basically, I gave my presentation, there wasn't a question, there wasn't any support, they just went on to the next item. And that happened a couple of times before finally, when the Stormwater Research Council formally organized and the Minnesota, University of Minnesota through the Stormwater or through the Water Resources Council, or what's it called? Water Resources Center.
Yeah.
When they were involved, then it finally gained some more respect, which we were hoping for. But it took a long time for that effort to have any success. And still, I don't think they're totally supportive. There's a number of watershed districts that aren't supporting that at all. So it's tough.
Yeah. It is the urban area versus outstate. That came up in the meeting last month too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I don't know how to overcome that or how
Oh,
that
yeah.
works, but.
Money would do it.
I know.
If they're able to levy like we can.
Yeah, well, and that, that's up always, or the last couple of cycles of legislative action, that's been one of them. And I know that MOD will probably ask metro watersheds to help support that and to, talk to our legislative members about that so that we can help support the outstate so that they can have better funding mechanisms.
Do a job, yeah.
Yeah. So there are opportunities, I think, for all of us to maybe be more involved or to help with that evolution of this this organization. So could probably look for more from me on that in the future too.
Anything else, Tina, or are we down to number 9?
I don't have anything else if no one else has any questions about that.
And the only thing I have for 9 is that I would like to see an update on Hillcrest sometime in the future. It's not on the list.
Yeah, we haven't had any update or anything to update on.
That's okay, but
when we do, we will, unless Paige, she popped on. Did you have something to add to Hillcrest?
No, we're still having pretty regular TAC meetings, but nothing new at this point.
Okay, good.
I was going to show you the water level. Can you see that on my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, went online. That was nice.
You can see that? Can you see it on the screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is just an example I wanted to show you. This is for Snail Lake. So this can be found on the water pages, the lake pages for the ones that we have the systems ready to go for. Here you'll see Snail Lake. If you click down here in the corner, actually will open up into the website. I don't know if you'll be able to see that or if I'll have to switch. Whoops, sorry. So it actually opens up to a larger viewer so you can see it a little better too as well, but you can adjust the dates. We're gonna get the historical data in here too. Right now it's just from when we got the lake level station information going, but you can adjust the dates, and also as you run the cursor left and right, you can see the levels will show up on for the particular date and time that it is shown for. And right now, I think we have it every 4 hours. We were gonna just kind of wait and see how, I think for the most part, every 4 hours is adequate, but we can change that kind of on the fly if we need to, if we need a more frequent update.
So you said you're going to add the historical data too?
Yeah.
On there?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
how do you make it bigger? It was too small to read on the screen when I opened it up.
So down in the bottom left, it says bottom right, on the website, it says Microsoft Power BI, and then on I'm sorry, that's bottom left. And then on the bottom right, there is the 2 arrows. It says open in full screen mode.
Oh,
And that opens it up into it. This is actually the website that Bar hosts for us with the all the different lake pages on them. And then the viewer is just what we have on our website. So that points to this.
Okay, and that's a good point. So there is a website, Bar has one that shows all of these graphs in one place.
So there is a back end place that staff use. It's got all the raw data and a lot of different information, but it's not a public facing website. This is the public facing, and you would just do it by lake for this version.
Okay, will we be looking, because I would find it valuable to have I very much like what's been done. But if I want to look at 2 lakes to see how they're either correlating, or I have to go to open up one and go and open up another. If I had this data on one page where I could go and look at it, it would be sort of helpful in doing that.
Yeah, I can, so we can see if we can get a viewer that way. I think we should be able to put them all on one page.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's cool the way it is because it's part of the information about the lake.
Right.
And if you want to look at all the lakes and see, particularly if we're getting rain events or something, and you want to see how it's affecting stuff, it'd be nice to have them all in one place instead of having to go back and look at individual lakes.
Sure, I'll talk to the team about that as well.
Okay, great. But thanks.
Diane,
It's kind of fun to play with, actually.
yeah.
It is.
And again, I live a limited life, so.
Diane, did you have a question about this, or was your hand up?
Not about this, except to say finally and yay.
Yes, we're happy, and we're excited too that we'll get those other the additional stations up and running and get those on the website as well. So I'm excited for that too.
Great, thank you.
All right, Diane.
Yeah, just a few other things. I had wanted to say thank you for your leadership on the MAWA and MOD stuff. There's enough work to do without taking on group projects, and I think our district is well situated to share, so I appreciate that. And then on the program and projects, on the Owasso Basin study, I'm interested in that and the process. And we received the study, we gave feedback, and it'd be nice to learn from what happened to the feedback. If it was stupid, if it was good, if it changed anything, if it was irrelevant. And then this time we were told the staff made comments, and then that there would be a final report. I'd be interested in what the staff found to comment on, just to see. It's a big deal. It's at the beginning, kind of still at the beginning stages, and it would be nice to learn as we go if there's a way to plug us back into the process to the extent people want to. But I'd certainly like to see what happens at each stage.
Yeah, I think maybe Brad, maybe when we do the final report, we could do a summary of changes since they saw it last based on the feedback, or
that would be easy to do. We have been tracking those comments as they've been put into the different versions of the documents, and figuring out ways to address them, or at least comment on why they may not be applicable. There.
Right.
We could summarize that, and that could help, I would think.
That would be great, thanks. And then
Yep.
I had a question about Keller and Phelan. It seems like Ramsey County is always taking forever to get the permits processed. And I was just wondering if you know why. Is it the parks, is it the legal opinion? Is it the commissioners? It's ridiculous.
It's always been that way.
So
But at what point is where is the glitch? Or is it all?
there's a couple things. So there's some park staff that have developed the process for needing county board approval for every access agreement. And yeah, I think that's where the pinch point is. And I've had many of discussions about that with Mark McCabe and in particular about the process and how I would say consuming and it's
like
just not,
delays.
it's hard. It's hard because what they say is, well, we should get in touch with them sooner. Well, we do. I mean, I think that our timing is right. It's just that before we can have it the way they need it for their board approval, we have to be at a certain point in our project because they want the exhibits to be just right and they want everything to be lined up. Well, then it's, at least a month, if not more, of routing through their commission approval process. And I think I've mentioned this before, and I keep coming back to it every year with Mark as well. Can we have a process where we have a general permit of some sort of general permit for the watershed? We have land, projects throughout our watershed in many different places that we're needing to maintain or build projects or do things, partner with them on. It just makes sense to me that they allow us to have some sort of general permit every year that's approved by their board. And then we have to submit something to their staff that would show access agreement needs for each project that we come forward with. So I'm going to keep on that. I guess what I'm hearing is that there's not an appetite, like that the board likes to see these. I don't know that the Board of Commissioners really cares, actually. I don't think so. I think it's some sort of process thing that a staff member at Parks has, because honestly, I mean, we have agreements with our water quality monitoring, we have agreements with our cost share program, and none of that goes to the board or goes through that same process. I sign it, it gets done, and I don't have to worry about it. So
it kind of seems to me like if they're getting something out of it, it goes smoothly. If we're just asking them for something we want, it has all these snags.
Right.
It's kind of been that way.
I like that idea of the general agreement.
Yeah.
The other option would be for the commissioners to just delegate the authority to do it. But if the pattern is, as Cliff has identified, the general access would be the way to go.
You know Mark McCabe pretty well, don't you, Tina?
Yeah, I know Mark, and he kind of keeps deferring to his staff. To Scott Yankee as a staff who does the permits.
That's the problem.
And we know these people well, so we're talking about. You can talk in code if you want, but we know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the pinch point is, and Mark doesn't. He seems to keep just deferring to the process that Scott has developed. So I'll keep on it, and we'll keep trying.
I presume we haven't gotten permission yet, because I watched the county board meetings to see if things are coming up. And I know when a permit like this is coming up, and it hasn't come up yet at all. So
no, it's February 16th, I think, is the meeting date. I think that's a 16th.
What's the longest that we've waited for one?
This is it.
I'd say
this might be it. This might be it. This is we initiated the first conversation with them back in October. I went back.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, but like Tina said, we don't have the project developed to that point. You know,
But in
where
this
we
case-
can really get into the official process. So,
In this case, we weren't changing anything. I mean, it was just work within the channel on our structure.
Yeah.
We just need to get at it.
Access to the land.
Yeah, I suggest you tell Mark that your board is not happy at all, and would he like that you would expect at some point fairly soon, there's going to be some direct communication to the commissioners.
Right.
And wouldn't there be a better way to resolve it, like the yearly permit?
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
yeah,
idea.
I'll have that conversation with Mark.
Because
Thank
it's
you.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Thanks.
'cause
And I had one last thing before we're done on that. Is Simba still awake?
Oh, she's smiling.
She's still
I see her.
smiling down there.
I'm still here.
Every time I look at that picture, I think, my God, she's still smiling. What's so?
I love that picture. I look so happy.
Yeah, I
And she
know.
is.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to share something. I attended a tree identification Zoom last night, and it was really great. I mean, and not only was it kind of the usual stuff about how the branches are and the leaves, but some great pictures of winter. And then they had funny things like the leaf scars, which ones look like a sloth, which ones look like a monkey.
A monkey, yeah.
Yeah, all of that. And since we're talking about doing some really great signage in Wetland A and what we've done in the other areas, I just wanted to let you know that, because the big takeaway from the meeting was that all these people want more signs. They were complaining, they go to parks, there's no tree ID, there's no plant ID and all of that. So I think there's a lot of community support for doing that. And if there's some way to incorporate some of the winter stuff, that'd be fun too.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because the last 2 days, we've been out in the field, the natural resources staff and Carrie. Carrie was formerly a professional photographer. I'm sure you've seen her work, doing winter plant photos to incorporate into that plant guide.
Good.
So that is definitely part of our plan. We had just a few photos from the Phelan guide, and we're building on that collection. There are, of course, a lot of things that aren't visible this time of year, but we're working really hard to incorporate photos of the things that are. So
Great, thanks.
yeah.
so
That's
I did put together a few pictures. Diane, you brought up the Phelan Keller project, and it is in full force, at least at the Phelan side of things. And if you'd be interested in seeing a few of those, Dave has taken some great construction photos. So let's share my screen and we can go through them here pretty quickly. Let me know when you can see. So this is, can you see this all right?
Yep.
Yeah, we can now.
Yep.
Okay, this is one of the two Phelan outlet structures, and basically, obviously, it was taken in summer, but this is what it looked like before, and then we started the construction. And as we talked about, they had to put the sheeting all the way around it to cut off the water so they could get at it and do the work we needed to, and they did this on both of the structures. You can see kind of the front part of this, that the front part of the structure comes off, and then we put on a trash rack to allow more flow to get through there. The level is still controlled by this concrete structure inside, but it just allows more water to get through that. You can see they're working on the side of the structure. That's where on each structure, each of the two, there's a large diameter pipe that comes out the side, and what you're seeing here in the bottom is the fabric and the rock that was a part of the change order in the consent agenda. So they use that to create, we call it a burrito of sorts. Basically, they'll wrap that rock in that geotextile, and then the pipe will sit on that, and that helps to support it in areas where we have poorer soils. We put the trash rack on, those pipes come out of each side of the structure into this large manhole that sticks out of the ground. And if you look down in there, you can see this notch that's ready for the gates that will be controlled by a motorized system once that gets put in place. Right now, there's just a plate in there. The plate is on the front side. The gate will be mounted on the back side when those are manufactured, and they're scheduled to come in sometime in March. But basically, we have 4 of those. And you can see one here and one here. And then the pipe that's laid from those structures where the gates will be installed gets extended out into the lake with this flared end section of a large trash rack. So poles will go through each of those when we open up the gates on each of those structures. And then this is the device, it's a little vibrating head. This is what they put the sheet pile in with, and then they pull it back out by vibrating it out as well. And the structure ends up it looks like this when they're generally done. Obviously, there'll be some restoration. There'll be a little bit of soil that's piled up here. But I think we were out there today, and Dave gave me a nice tour of this site and the work happening over by Owasso Basin. And there may be an opportunity to create make these look a little bit nicer. And they will stick out of the ground a ways, not quite as high as what you see right now. But we'll continue to think about that and maybe bring ideas forth as a staff, not only from BAR, but also from the Watershed District. And that's all the photos I had for that one. Any questions about any of those photos?
Over to the left, it looks like there's a couple of trees they had to take down, or what is that?
Yeah, they had to trim it. There were some trees and some trees that had fallen over, and maybe Cindy even knows more specifically, the trees that they did take. You're pretty familiar with the area. Cindy, did you have any comments on the trees they did take?
Boy, I have not been out there to see what they actually removed. There were a couple of willows that were growing sideways that were, if those came out, we'll definitely be hearing about it. Those had a lot of significance to the neighborhood, and we tried to communicate that to Dave, that those needed to be protected. There are some other larger cottonwoods that were not much of an issue that needed to come out.
Yeah, as far as excuse me, as far as tree removal itself, it was fairly minor. We had to take out a couple of them, and those are the the black willow. The city allowed us to trim a little bit as that pipe was getting pretty close, just so we can put the wall in. But as a whole, they should be okay. But yeah, those are sensitive trees that are laying down right there. No question about it.
So as you can see on this structure, once the sheeting was taken back out, the pipes are underwater. There's one about in this area right here, another one on the other side, and then the trash rack that comes out of the front face is also submerged, controlled by the, during normal conditions, by the concrete structure inside the larger structure. And then once we get the gates in place and the motors hooked up, and then we would operate that during flood flow conditions under certain scenarios upstream, opening up the gates to let even more flow into the structure that would pass it into the belt line. Any other questions or? Okay.
A chance to make whatever is sticking up into some kind of public art.
That's what we talked about today. So that was just what we initiated the conversation, but I think that there could be an opportunity there once we kind of get to the point where we know where the final grade will be up against it. Yes. And I just have one photo that shows the start of the creek cleaning, and this is this will be a substantial effort. This is from south of Owasso Boulevard, downstream of Owasso Basin, Jarvis Creek, all the way down to Country Drive. It's a little over a half of a mile, and the contractor is busy working in that area. I don't have a picture of the equipment, but basically this ends up being, what is that, Dave, about 6 or 8 feet wide?
5 feet you see right there, and then
5
it tapers.
feet.
5 feet of water, and it tapers up.
Okay, okay. But that project is underway as well, and it's part of the, as we referred to it in the Owasso study as one of the areas of low-hanging fruit, and it was right there for us to do. It's a big job, but I think it will help improve the situation incrementally. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. I like that. I want to put in a quick comment right before you presented. We were talking about, there's a need for signage and it's really helpful. I just wanted to remind our board and the newer board members that Bill Bartlejay actually wrote a book of identifying all of the plants that have been put around Phelan. And it's awesome. And it's, a guide. I think it had pictures of what they look like when they're young and old. And I'll just throw that out there. And it might be something, I don't know if there's, Diane, you might be interested in that if it's still
I've
around.
got it.
Oh, you've got it. Okay, good. You already knew. All right.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to use parts of that for their signage and piggyback on it. And the nice thing about the new signs too was the code that people would be able to use with their phones to get more information. That's really good.
Great, thanks for those comments too. Anything else on the project and program status report?
That's something on the communications program.
Yeah.
Lauren mentioned in part of it that the messages for recruiting the CAC, there were messages to partners, email articles, social media posts, and ads. And I just didn't mention where those were posted.
The ads?
Well, the ads and the articles.
So the articles were in our email newsletter, so that went out through email. The ads are through the social media, so they're Facebook ads, but they're targeted to the communities within our district, actually by zip code. So that's what you used for ads there. We have received, and I don't have a number in front of me, but I mean, I would say at least 10 applications for
Great.
The CAC through that targeted effort. So it does seem to be working.
Yeah.
The proactive information on salting was really a good idea too.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Where are we, Tina?
Well, if there's nothing else for that, then we would be down to report of managers.
Okay, Larry,
Nothing.
Diane,
Nothing else.
Pam,
Nope, don't have anything.
Cliff? Nope. And me, Larry, I am more than happy to let you be the chair. I just want you to know that.
Thanks, Marge. I appreciate it. It's unexpected, but thank you. Not your the fact that I'm all of a sudden president.
Congratulations, Larry. And with that, I'll move we adjourn.
I'd like to tell Marge we appreciate her service as president.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Thank you, Marge.
Well, you're all welcome. And it's, it hasn't been fun with these electronic meetings, but we only have a couple months to go. And for me, it will be enjoyable again.
Yeah, looking forward to meeting in person.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
All right, we're
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Thanyou.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye.